Hey, thanks for taking a moment to learn more about the Contego concept. You know, intumescents are nothing new. They've been around for 25 or 30 years. The problem in the past has been they've been difficult to work with. Thick, smelly, hard to apply, exotic preparations were required. Couldn't top coat them, they'd crack, they'd fall off. It was a good concept, but it had a lot of product problems. Well, Contego is a revolution in that field because we've spent the time and the money to engineer a product that overcomes those problems. Now, you've received an information kit, and in that information kit are several things. Obviously, the CD-ROM, because that's how you're watching this presentation. But we've also sent a dry sample that gives you an idea of just how smooth and attractive the Contego coating is. It applies with a simple red oxide primer on steel or on combustible surfaces like plywood, dimensional lumber, OSB, spray polyurethane foam, and others. You just simply spray the product on. The product bonds very aggressively. Our adhesion data, using both the cross-cut and the ribbon cut methodologies for ASTM, show extremely high tensile strength and intercoat adhesion. When you're done with the application of the Contego product, simply top coat it with any acrylic enamel to get the exact finish that you want. The product smells pleasant, it cleans up with soap and water, and it's a product that lasts for a very long time. Our spectrofluoroscopic analyses of the various batch samples that we run go back 7 years and show absolutely no change in the product, which is phenomenal in can stability. Although we've sent you these samples, I want you to take the wet sample that we've sent, and I want you to get creative with that. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of some things that you can do. First of all, this is the dry sample that we sent, and it does more than just show you how attractive the product is. This sample is also going to be used right now to show you how effectively it performs. I'm going to take a standard Bernzomatic propane blowtorch, and we're going to actually burn it. I want to demonstrate exactly how intumescence works. When exposed to heat or high flame, you can see that the coating starts to bubble up. Notice that there's almost no smoke production coming off of this paddle. And that's one of the key advantages of an intumescent product like Contego in a real fire situation. Now notice that the paddle is glowing red and will eventually glow red-white. That's an effective demonstration of how this product is reflecting away heat and thermal energy. Now keep in mind, this paddle is an extremely thin wood paddle, only about 3/32 of an inch thick. Now most intumescents can't travel around an edge, but notice how the Contego product swells up to protect even sharp edges. As demonstrated in some of the photographic support for the many tests that are included on the CD-ROM that you have, you'll see that Contego responds like no other intumescent you've ever seen. Now notice how the longer we keep the fire on the stick, the thicker the char layer gets. The product responds comparatively to the amount of temperature and the duration of the fire. This would eventually swell up to 3 inches thick. This has 2 coats of Contego on it. And at this point, we've only activated the first layer of the coating. Often in a fire situation, once the fire goes out, it can reignite over time. When you burn your stick like this, you might let it set for a while and then come back and burn it again after it's cooled off. That'll demonstrate that Contego, once it's deployed, is an extremely effective coating that lasts for a very long time. Now let's take a break here for a second. I'm going to turn the torch off. And this gives you an idea of what the coating looks like after the fire is out. However, once the fire is extinguished, I want to point out a couple of things that are really, really important about the Contego coating. First of all, the char layer is dense and hard. Early generation intumescents did produce a char layer, but it was like a light cigarette ash. Now in a test furnace, that can be useful, but in a real fire situation with tornadic eddies, things flying around, once you penetrate the char layer, then it loses its ability to protect. I'm going to cut through this char layer, and I'm going to scrape this off. And notice that we still have the first layer of Contego that was applied in place, just starting to deploy. We could have burnt the stick for a lot longer, and certainly feel free to do that with the stick that I've enclosed in your sample. Now that's genuine protection. Let me show you something further. Now we've knocked off the protective char layer, and typically that's the end of an intumescent's ability to protect. However, let's light the torch up again, and I'm going to hit this one more time. Even so, we have the ability to fire this off again, and the coating starts again to redeploy and protect, even though we've taken off the protective char layer. And we wind up with the same thick protective char layer that we had originally. Now notice that when I turn the paddle over, with all of that, we really haven't damaged the backside at all. And that's in a paddle that's 3/32 of an inch thick, identical to the one that you have in your sample kit. Just by way of comparison, try burning an unprotected end of the paddle with the same blowtorch. Within 3 seconds, the paddle is completely charred and fully inflamed. Within 10 seconds, we're going to blister completely through it. Another important application, in fact our biggest market for Contego, has to do with structural steel. Well, this Diet Coke can is a far cry from structural steel, but it's a really dramatic representation of how effective the Contego product is. When you get your wet sample, take the Contego product out and simply paint 2 coats on your can. Paint on 1 coat, allow it to dry, and then paint on a 2nd coat. Now when you do that, you're going to be ready to discover something very important about how effective the Contego product is on metals. Here's a can that has been treated with Contego. Here's an identical can that is untreated. Now let's watch what happens when we expose these cans to the same propane torch that we used on the stick. Okay, I'm going to hit the untreated Diet Coke can with a propane torch and watch how it's vaporized within 5 seconds. It's glowing orange, it's gone. And feel free to do this with your sample kit as well. Within 40 seconds, we can make this can totally disappear. And that's all there is to it. Okay, now let's try the same thing with an identical soda can with 2 coats of Contego on it. Again, just like with the paint stick, the Contego coating deploys at 360 degrees and starts to protect the can. Now the Contego coating is swelling up very, very aggressively in response to the temperature and the need to protect the substrate and keep it at a stable temperature. And again, I encourage you to do this yourself because you could literally work on this until this time next year without damaging the interior of the can. Here we are at 30 minutes working on the can, trying to destroy that aluminum. And again, remember how quickly the untreated can was utterly destroyed. Not heated up, not even melted, but vaporized. Now we're at an hour, and nothing has changed. But we're going to let this specimen cool off for a second, and I want to show you something very, very dramatic. Okay, now we've let our test can cool down. I'm going to take a Dremel tool, and we're going to cut through this. Okay, let's take a look inside this can. Almost no discoloration except for the part where the flame was most concentrated. Now that's dramatic protection, but that's what Contego is all about. I want you to be creative with the sample kit that you've got. Take this wet sample and paint 2 coats on anything you like. Spray polyurethane foam, vinyl clad gypsum, plywood, OSB, whatever you can think of, whatever you need to protect. Contego is the product that's got the technology, the testing, and the capability. Thanks for watching. Fire is a problem, but Contego is a solution.